Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about Fire Tower, one of my favorite quick-playing games in my collection. I discovered Fire Tower about a year ago, at the very first convention I went to as Quackalope, Origins. Sat down, played it, immediately bought a copy, went back and bought a second copy for my gaming group, and since then it's become a staple of my collection. This is and will remain part of my gaming library for as far as I can see down the line. I don't have another game in my collection that quite does what this does. It is mean, it is take that, it has some really nice strategy and pattern laying mechanics, it has a theme that is ridiculous but also a lot of fun, and it plays 2 to 4 players and soon 1 to 4 players quickly and efficiently, and it is always a joy to get down and onto the table. Since that discovery, like I said about a year ago, we've brought this game to the channel 2 times so far. We brought a gameplay very early on, and then a full right for you, wrong for you, our in-depth review of the core game. And now we're bringing this game back to the channel for one very specific reason. Fire Tower is having an expansion coming out, Rising Flames, which is currently available on Kickstarter. And if you already enjoy Fire Tower, or if you're considering picking up Fire Tower, spoiler alert, so you don't have to watch the rest of this video, Rising Flames is a must-buy. I absolutely love the way that it integrates new movement abilities, new card mechanics, new player powers, which get you more control over some of the areas that we thought the game was weak in. Even though we liked it, some of the areas we thought were potentially weak in the core game have been adapted and improved dramatically through this expansion. So, this is one you should be paying attention to. Now, this is a Kickstarter preview of Rising Flames, and so I will be going over all of the new elements that they are bringing into this core game. So those of you that are familiar with Fire Tower already will get a in-depth look at the new mechanics and the new possibilities you're going to have when you start mixing this into your core system. And those of you that are brand new to Fire Tower, I'd recommend checking the links down in the comment section below. We will not only have a gameplay of the expansion, but we have an older gameplay of just the core, and we have a full right for you, wrong for you review video where we break down all of our thoughts around the core game. So take the time to dive in and find out all the information you need to decide if this is going to be right to add to your shelf. Now, before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that this is not a paid sponsorship. Instead, this is one of the very first videos that has been entirely sponsored by our Patreon community. We're doing what we can to highlight and identify and lift up small publishers or brand new game designers in the space. And so our Patreon community that not only gets access to exclusive content, podcast feeds, bonus episodes, weird kind of off-the-cuff gameplay videos, but they also give us the opportunity to reach out to companies like Runaway Parade Games, a small 2-person team with this one game in their library. It's ran by Gwen and Sam, who are fantastic human beings. I've had the chance to meet and interact and spend time with them at a few local conventions, and I'm really excited to be able to use the support our Patreon community has shown us to highlight and lift up brand new designers. And so, if you want to support what we're doing here on the channel, if you want to support our mission to not only cover the big names across the board and bring you the highest quality content we can, but also highlight and continue shouting about small publishers that we think are doing something really special in the industry, then take the time to not only subscribe to our channel, but swing over to the Patreon, get access to exclusive content, and support kind of the mission and the work that we're doing here on Quackalope. Whatever the case, I'm not going to spend too long diving into the core of Fire Tower. I'm just going to set up the premise and then start going into the specifics of what this expansion adds. So the core premise of Fire Tower is that you are one of 4 kind of tower wardens here on the corners of the board. You are looking down at an inferno that is blazing here in the center. Not quite how fire towers work, but we'll let it slide. And you are encouraging that fire by playing cards from your hand to build a pattern across the board in order to consume the other player's fire tower before yours gets consumed by the flame. Also, not how fire towers work, but again, we'll let it slide because it's just so much fun. This is a pattern laying and take that style game. So the cards that you're playing from your hand are going to be doing a series of pretty straightforward things. Either spreading fire in a specific pattern or a specific style, laying down barriers that prevent that pattern from growing, or playing water cards that reduce or recede that pattern spread, right? You're pushing fire, you're trying to encourage it in various directions, and you win the game if you are the last person alive by the time everyone else has burned down. That's the core premise of Fire Tower. It is ridiculous, it is a lot of fun, and it plays quick and efficiently. I remember there was one point where we had a game of Scythe which was hard and heavy and left half the group feeling very frustrated after I dominated. And so, our solution to that was to pull out a game of Fire Tower immediately after, while all 3 of the other players proceeded to burn down my tower, laugh mercilessly, can't say that word, laugh in my face, and then play a 3-player game against each other after their combined efforts successfully destroyed my barricades. Whatever the case, that's the core premise of Fire Tower. Now let's start talking about what Rising Flames brings into the fold. There's going to be a few different elements. First off, there's going to be an introduction of a whole new series of cards. Not only burning cards and water cards, you also have the introduction of Hawks, which is a brand new mechanic. You have multi-purpose directional cards, which I'll explain here in just a moment. You have player powers, and then you have event cards. These are all going to be game-changing mechanics that you can choose to incorporate however you would like. And I'll go through how each one operates in just a moment. But then along with that, you're going to have the introduction of not only a brand new solo mode, but also a mode that gives player elimination a little bit more agency over the game. You see, in the core game, when a player was eliminated, they were able to influence the flame a little bit. But you never wanted to be the kingmaker. And so really, you do kind of side flames and try not to sway the decision of the wind or the decision of the fire. At least that's how me and my gaming group played it. Here, with the brand new Shadow of the Woods integration, your win condition doesn't end when you get knocked out of the game. Instead, it just changes. You now want to be the person who burns down all of the fire towers in a single round. This adds pressure to the game and makes those that are eliminated a little bit more integral to the gameplay experience. I want everyone to be in a position where I'm ready to burn down and be the last surviving person before I start knocking people out of the game. It shifts that timing just a little bit. You have to be a little bit more strategic on at what point you knock someone out, or how soon you knock out multiple people, because they will team up to ensure everyone else's demise. It allows them to still take part in the game in a very, very interesting and sort of ridiculous way. So, let's swing into the core brand new mechanics of this game, and let's start with maybe the most salient object here. We have these firehawks. Now these are prototypes. These are 3D printed examples that Runaway Parade sent me. But you have these firehawks here on the board, and they're going to function in some really cool ways. You see, the firehawks are kind of like barriers, except instead of blocking the spread of fire, they will lift up and move an ember when it comes into their location. They grab onto a branch with their talons, lift up into the air, and spread that somewhere else around the forest. So they're sort of rockets or fireworks that explode when fire spreads too far, and if you use them right, you can really do a lot to create a barrier between yourself, the fire, and your fire tower. For instance, I could set them down here around my barriers here, and as fire spreads, these will be a single point of blocking damage. So let's explain how they work. First off, you have a brand new set of cards, a pair of hawk and a trio of hawks. This will allow you to play down multiple hawks in your zone. So the space divided by north and west, or west and south, your little self-contained grid. You can put them down anywhere you'd like, and then as fire moves into them, they will pick up, lift, and carry over one ember of fire, placing it down according to standard placement rules, so always adjacent to another fire gem. Now, when you play these cards, you can also rearrange your hawks. So if someone places something that allows them to spawn more, you can shift your hawks to various other locations, creating a brand new barrier and giving you a lot more agency over the layout of your side of the board. Now on top of that, something that you might not get until you're digging into the strategy of this, you're also allowed to trigger your own hawks. Now sure, it reduces your defenses in a way, but if you just need to place that perfect row of fire, you might spread to your own side of the board, triggering 2 or 3 hawks at a time, and giving you all the agency you need to lay down fire gems over on your opponent's side of the board. So that is one element that I think is maybe the feature they're pushing the most, and so one of the most unique or interesting elements they've introduced to the game. I really like how these firehawks integrate, I like the strategy, I like that it gives you more control over your board space. But here's the thing, those, while they're very cool and maybe the shiniest new object, they are not the thing that I find the most intriguing about the expansion. Instead, that's going to be the combination of the new cards and the player powers themselves, and I'll get into that right now. So starting here with the new cards, we have 3 brand new fire placement cards: Creeping Fires, Crown Fires, and Rolling Firebrands. Creeping Fires are going to allow you to place down 3 fire gems, but they can't be adjacent to each other. So you'll spread in the direction you want as long as those 3 embers are not connected. That's a lot of fire placement, but it doesn't allow you to do a straight long line like some of your other fire cards. It's a good mechanic, allows you to spread in a wider kind of breadth, and still be purposeful with how you're spreading or using fire. Crown Fire. This one is really cool. Crown Fire is going to allow you to place down 2 fire gems at a time. Here's the key. You're going to be able to use 2 of these cards at the same exact time, giving you a power of 4 if you have it. And those can be adjacent to each other. So you can make an L shape, you could spread 4 in a straight line, you could do a grid pattern, whatever you need to get to your target. I like that this card not only has use as a single card, fairly powerful, 2 fire gems is not bad, but also it allows you to cycle more cards out of your hand if you happen to have multiples of them. And in a game like Fire Tower, in the base game, 1 card at a time was all you were ever playing unless you were discarding cards from your hand. This changes that up a little bit, and I really like how it does so. Finally, we have Rolling Firebrand. This is going to actually manipulate the fire that's on the board. So like a log rolling down the hill, you're going to shift 2 fire gems 2 spaces, moving down, up, kind of shifting them in the board state. They can't run into fire barriers, they can't cross the path of other fire, so you have to shift them, very purposefully. Here's the really cool thing though. You can use this not only for your own personal attacking, but also potentially as a defense maneuver to get someone away from your gate. This is the first card that I've seen that doesn't get rid of fire, but instead manipulates it in a purposeful way, giving you more control over what your zone looks like. And I really like that. I like that I can attack with this card or play it strategically as a potential defense. Imagine if someone was right here, kind of in your gate. Backing them up and off 2 spaces could be the difference between life or death, a round or 2. And so this is a really powerful and unique card, and I'd like to see more abilities down the road that allow you to manipulate your fire. The only other one we had was Ember, which allowed you to lift up and float a fire gem over to the other side of the board, but that was never powerful enough to really change the state of things on your side. This here really does feel like it is. Along with those new fire cards, we also have another water card and another defensive card. Backburn is going to allow you to replace a single fire gem with 1 fire break token. This is good. This clears fire off the board, but also lays down a level of defense. You still have to follow the same rules as original fire break tokens, so this won't allow you to create a full kind of bar or barrier, but it will give you a little bit more that you can do in terms of halting the spread of the other player. And we have Heli Attack. This is going to allow you to remove up to 3 fire gems in a pattern of 2 and then 1. Now they can be right next to each other, but they don't have to be. Over here I could remove these 2 and then a single fire gem from this location if I wanted. This is a good multi-use and multi-purpose water attack that again just gives you a little bit more control with how you're playing the board. We also have brand new directional cards here. Instead of having north, south, east, and west, these are combined, so things like northwest or southeast. They allow you to do the same thing that you would do with your normal directional cards, except the effects can happen on both of their directional systems. So this northwest card here could be used to change the wind to north or west, or place a gem in the north or the west, or, of course, roll the die like a standard sort of directional card. And then finally, we're going to get down here to the new events and our specific player powers. Now let me start with our player powers. I find these really fascinating, and for me, these cards go a long way in addressing one of the bigger problems that we ran into when playing this game. And that was when you were in a position stuck with way too many win cards in your hand. The bucket, even though it provides an opportunity to cycle water or cycle barrier cards, make it so defensive cards can be used to just wreak havoc and cause destruction, I never found that new ability to be as useful as I think it was maybe intended to be. These abilities are a little bit different. They're going to be two-sided, heavy winds and then light breeze, lookout and then patrol, and you always have to start by utilizing the first and more powerful ability, then flipping the card, and unlocking a consistent or constant ability. And they are going to allow you to really cycle cards out of your hand in a very specific way. So heavy winds. Play as many win cards from your hand as you wish. For each card, place a fire gem in the direction showing on the card as if using the third option on each card. Draw back up to your hand size and flip this card. That is going to be fantastic. If I am piled up with gray cards that I just don't want to use, I can spend them all in one big sweep, either placing down 4 or 5 fire gems at the same time, or potentially cycling my hand and searching for or hunting the deck for those cards that I really actually need. This is a mechanic that lets me not have to spend a turn discarding, which is easily the thing we avoid the most and probably the least fun part of this game, is just getting stuck with a hand of cards that you don't want to use. So this gives me control over that. Now once I've used it, I unlock an ability called Light Breeze. Light Breeze. Anytime you play a wind card, you may play one additional wind card and place a fire gem in the direction of the card, as if using the third option on the card. Draw back up to your hand size. Now again, it is not as powerful as its top action, but it gives me more control and allows me to not only change the wind direction, but also place a fire gem down and cycle 2 cards out of my hand. Just like the Crown Fire over here, the ability to cycle cards without discarding gives me way more control of getting through this deck and finding the cards I need to elicit or do my strategy on the board. And with a game like this that is all about take that, all about right card placement, all about having what you need when you need it, I like that this gives me the control to try to seek out and find that, instead of feeling like the deck is working against me. Now our second ability here, Lookout. For your turn, draw 3 cards from the top of the deck, and play one of them. Discard the other 2 cards, flip this card, you will not draw another card at the end of your turn. So this allows me to hunt the deck and play a card if I need something immediately, but maybe don't have in my hand. This is a good emergency card for something along the lines of maybe a water card or a fire card to put some pressure on or defend my own barrier. Now once that flips, for your turn, discard 1 card from your hand without taking its action. Draw 2 cards from the top of the deck and play one of them. Put the other card in your hand. Do not draw another card at the end of your turn. So this lets me dig in the deck, lets me get rid of a card from my hand. It is a discard action, and still lets me take an action on my turn. Now it might not be the exact action that I'm looking for, but it does give me the feeling of control, or at least a bit of mediation over, once again, having a dead hand, which is, or was, the least fun part of this game. Now, in the playtesting that I've done for Fire Tower with Rising Flames, I have not come across a situation yet where I didn't feel like I could utilize the cards that I had in my hand in an important and purposeful way. So, again, that initial problem I had, the maybe 1 or 2 areas that I would have complained about original Fire Tower, they've done a lot to resolve and address that. And I just knew about the firehawks. I didn't even realize these new cards or the mechanics that they were using or introducing to the game when they first kind of came across my path. And then we have 3 more event cards. These are going to be similar to Inferno, where you spread fire across the board in a specific way. So starting with maybe the easiest, mobilization. Prepare for action. You must play this card immediately. When you do so, you're going to draw cards from the top of the deck. One more than the amount of people playing, so in a 3-player game you draw 4 cards. Then you're going to play one and pass that around the table. Everyone is going to get the opportunity to play one of those cards. So this could be really interesting, depending on who pulls that and at what order you get to choose the cards you play. You really have to be careful what you hand off to the next player and what you use for yourself. Then we have Kettle Flight. Hawks take flight. You must play this card immediately. Now this card is going to affect or interact with the Hawks specifically. If you have less than 2, you're going to reposition and spawn 2 more onto the board. If you have more than 2, then 2 of your Hawks pick up a fire gem from where they are, fly over anywhere else on the board you'd like, and they will land and spread fire. So it reduces another player's amount of Hawks they have, allows you to buff and reposition your own. And then finally, a weird mechanic, maybe the strangest mechanic that has been introduced, and one that you don't have to play with, but this could be really cool depending on when it comes out. We have a situation called Dry Storm, lightning strikes. So when you pull this card, you're going to be utilizing these brand new lightning symbols here on the board. Now these are interesting. They start at the corner of the Inferno, and you can push them or spread them by spreading fire to their location, and then they always pop into a place that is adjacent to one of the brand new fire gems you just played down. Now when Dry Storm comes and lightning strikes, you're going to be rolling the die 4 times, spreading 1 fire gem in the direction of the lightning strike as you roll. So there is a chance you could get 4 souths and spread a row of 4 directly from every single one of these lightning gems. Now, there's some really interesting placement rules. It, of course, can't cross barriers and can't kind of run into the edge of walls or anything like that. So you will spread as far as you can wherever there's an open zone. So if I was spreading to the south from this lightning strike, it would spread the whole way down here. You could also remove them from the map by bumping them up against walls, but here's where it gets really interesting. If you're able to push these over into a neighbor's zone, maybe even shift 2 of them down, then when this card gets pulled, it is like a zap of lightning, an explosion of fire, and little pockets of flames start bursting forth. This could be really, really major when it happens. Just like Firestorm spreads the fire in one significant direction, taking what is a maybe subtle wind mechanic, something that is a constant pressure point, and suddenly making it a major deal that all the fire is going south, the same thing can happen here with Lightning Strike. You might not ever come across it. We've got a big stack of cards here, but if you've ignored those lightning bolts for too long, or you haven't been able to control their placement and Dry Storm comes out, that is going to be a major issue for you and could sign off the end of the game. So those are the new cards that have been brought in. Those are the brand new firehawks that have been introduced into the game. We also have 2 more interesting mechanics. First off, we have Shadow of the Wood. Like I said, when a player gets knocked out, they're going to become the Shadow of the Forest, and they no longer want any fire towers to survive. Shadow of the Wood is going to give you a little bit more control over being that sort of anonymous spirit of the forest. You're going to be rolling a die every time it comes around to your turn again, and taking an action according to this board here. You could do something like activating a Firehawk, drawing cards and playing them, or spreading sparks across the board. Your goal, working either by yourself or with any other player who's been knocked out already, is to burn everyone down in a single round. So by the time it gets back to your turn, there's not a single fire tower standing, and then you and any other Shadows of the Wood have won the game instead of the other players who successfully burned you to a crisp. I like this because it doesn't overbalance the game, but it keeps me engaged as a discarded player. As someone who has lost, my win condition now shifts in a really interesting way, and instead of taking out and enacting revenge on a single person, I have to be really purposeful and strategic because I still want to win. So I'm not just going to take revenge on the person that knocked me out. Instead, I want to help get them both to the tipping point. So when it comes to my turn, I'm able to balance that scale shift them into a uncomfortable position, and hopefully burn them down before my turn starts again, being able to boast and laugh and claim victory. That would have really changed the dynamic when that scythe game happened and they all took out their revenge on me. I could have potentially flipped it on its head. And then lastly, this is a mechanic that I don't know as much about yet, but I have talked with them about it, and I am excited to potentially bring you a gameplay of it somewhere towards the middle part of this campaign, and that's going to be the brand new solo mode of Fire Tower. This is already a really interesting and compelling pattern-laying game, with, I would say, even more strategic choices now that the expansion has came out. More control over your board, more decisions that you can make, more cards in your hand that you can utilize, and more ways to cycle and play and use their effects. So here's the cool thing. In the solo mode they're introducing, you're going to be working against 3 other anonymous fire towers, who will be spreading and pattern laying and creating a grid coming after you. Your job is to fend off that pattern, hold back the kind of barriers, and spread or encourage the fire in their direction, burning down all 3 other towers before they're able to effectively spread to you. Now, like I said, I don't have as much information around the solo mode as I would like, but I trust the designers, I trust the core structure of this game, and I will hopefully be bringing you some solo gameplay throughout the course of this campaign so you can take a closer look at it. Despite the solo mode, despite any of that, this is still going to be one of my favorite 3 or 4 player games. It is quick, it is fast paced, and it is easy to play. So if you have it already, Rising Flames is going to add to that core experience. If you don't have it, I hands down, without a shred of doubt, recommend that you get both Fire Tower and Rising Flames, if this seems like the type of game that you would enjoy. If you don't think you like pattern laying or take that style games that are a little bit mean, then maybe this isn't the right one for you, and that is entirely fine. But if this is up your genre of game, if you know you can get this to the table with a few of your friends, this is genuinely one of kind of my core games. This is one of the games that is not leaving my gaming shelf. And so I have no problem unapologetically going on camera and telling you how lovely and how much of a gem that this game is. So, all that being said, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you some insight into what Rising Flame is bringing new to the fold, why I am so excited about it, and hopefully why you should be as well. If this seems like the game for you, leave a comment in the description down below letting us know why, and leave a quack over on the Fire Tower page. I'd love to see a few of our ducks showing up there. I'm still trying to talk them into, I mean, they introduced hawks. That's one type of fowl. I figure, I mean, don't get me wrong, but I figure there is a way that we could integrate a duck into this game. I haven't figured it out yet, but I have some speculations. So here's what I'd like you to do. If you made it to this point in the video, either in the comment section of this video or over on the Kickstarter page itself, because I think that would be hilarious, let them know what you would do to bring a duck into this game. Would it waddle across the ground? Would it be maybe a mechanic that reduces the spread of fire? I don't know. There's a lot of different possibilities. So leave a comment on one of those 2 places, and I will be I'll be looking out for it. Whatever the case, though, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games, and I'll see you next time.